you shouldn't have to redo your animation. This trick works. What I did, when you have a layer selected in the timeline and the artwork selected in the project panel, if you hold down Alt or Option, when you click and drag from the project panel to the timeline, you'll swap out the artwork, keep all your keyframes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find each and every layer and do this Option drag to hard override where it's linking your artwork from. It's going to keep all your keyframes. It'll be a little time consuming, but this is the best solution for you. So I'm going to see if this works for the rest of your sequences. One moment, please. And it looks like the back spikes might be breaking off the body. And it also looks like the texture inside the head might not be parented to the head. That's why the texture in the head is moving. Well, I mean, the texture is staying still while the head moves. So let's take a look at that real quick. You can see right here, this is not parented to anything. So I'm going to parent it to the head base. So now when we take a look at it, the texture is not moving, or I should say the texture is moving with the head rather than standing still. But I'm liking the motion you have for the dragon. It'd be nice to see the eyes open and close a little bit, like a blinking. Have this going on. Did you do the extended scene for it to fly over in the background or any other elements? Like you saw how I relinked all this artwork except for the stuff for the legs, which for some odd reason is missing. Okay, yeah, so work on your background and stuff like that, and think about how the text is going to come out and what your fire is going to look like and how you're going to do that. But like I said, the motion of the dragon's looking great. So, you know, this is the only thing I can think of for linking your artwork. Like I said, going into each sequence, selecting in the project panel, selecting the timeline, holding Alt or Option, and clicking to drag it over to swap it out. You'll keep your keyframing and all that. I don't know why your art keeps breaking up like this. I think what will work the best, you have your artwork and your After Effects file just in one folder. So it's all in one spot. That should help with the breaking of the things. If you keep it all together, you don't even have to zip it. I would just make one folder, work off of that, and then copy that folder into your Google Drive. Doesn't even need to be zipped. That's what we should try next, and that might fix that issue. Okay, everything's looking really good. The photo disappears abruptly because, you know, the layer ends right there. It'd be good if that dissolved off with the newspaper in a similar fashion. So just use the same treatment for that. Also, if things get a little weird with that, what you can do is you can get the photo and pre-comp it with the newspaper so they fade off together, because if you fade them off separately, you'll see the newspaper through the photo and it'll look weird. But that's the only thing I have for pushing this. We'll see what happens when I hit play. I would just work on fixing that. Okay, the typeface, you know, I don't have that font, so if you just show me what it looks like a screenshot next time, you know. So, okay, so here's what I wanted to test out with the person at the end. Like I said, the photo, you definitely got to have that dissolve off with the newspaper. Oh, I see what you mean by ing font. Yeah. Okay, so let's try something out here real quick. Oh, never mind, it won't work. It's one photo. I was gonna say, if these were separate images, we could puppet pin the detective and get a little bit of motion to him. But we won't be able to do that since it's one photo. But it's coming along very nicely. Yeah, I mean, that's it, you know, like that font, you know, whatever it is, and the photo, and then it should be pretty good to go. You could always add a little bit of motion in here, like things swaying or zooming in to the scene with, you know, changing the scale. Either of those would be a good little thing to do. But that's about it. It's looking really good. So very nice work so far. No problem at all. Okay, so we'll ignore the font. Oh, you know what? Let me show you something real quick while we're talking about fonts. So I'm just going to go here. Okay, so let's say you need me to see something and, you know, I don't have the font. What you can always do is right click on the layer and choose create shapes from text. And that's almost the same as, like, you know, turning it into paths in Illustrator or something like that. You cannot edit the type at this point, but you still have the original there. So I'll at least be able to see what the font looks like. So that's, you know, the fast fix for me seeing what fonts look like that I don't have. All right, so you have a couple elements going on. What might be nice is using this skull as a fly-through with an alpha invert into this next scene. So that's already there. Another thing that could happen is, yeah, that, and then having that over there. I'm not really sold on this random graphic. And I think the type treatment needs to be pushed further. Aside from the skull, like, the character is very static. I like the color palette you're working with. Lots of good contrast, but the more modern way of doing this is having the type revealed in the shape, like using the shape as an alpha matte rather than having the push down and the fade on. I'll show you how to do that real quick. So there's your bar. There's the word. I probably misspelled it, but we're not here for language arts. Okay, so I'm going to have this start outside of it. Hit P for position. Go forward whatever amount of time. Drop it down to where it needs to go. Like such. Okay, so remember with alpha mattes, the shape goes over what you want to reveal. I'm going to duplicate the shape because if I only have one and I use it as an alpha matte, you won't see the color shape that we want in the image. So that's why I'm going to duplicate it. Command D, put that above. Then I just go to my text. In my modes, these are switches, and you go to switches and modes to toggle between them. I set my track matte to alpha matte. Now you have that more modern look of the type entering into the solid rather than dropping down and fading on. This is the more modern way of doing it. And for the other word, you'd probably just use a duplicate of this shape again. So I'm going to duplicate it one more time, and I'm going to duplicate the type. And yes, so the shape's above, that's below. And I'm going to change what this says, as well as move it down too. So here's a little trick. If I need to move both of these keyframes, I selected them by clicking the word position. They're both selected because I clicked the word position. If I move down on the y-axis, like that, now they both move down the same amount in y space. Okay? So I've got that, and I forget what it says. Aggression is something, comfort. So I'm going to change that to say comfort. And now, instead of an alpha matte, I'm going to make it alpha invert. So that means it's the opposite of an alpha matte. So if what's inside this box is visible for aggression, what's outside the box will be visible for comfort. So you see it disappear. That's using one shape as two different types of alpha mattes. The alpha matte having the word aggression reveal inside it, and then doing an alpha matte invert to have the word comfort reveal outside of it. And then you could just slide your keyframes to get the type of animation hierarchy you want for how things enter and when they enter. Like that. So that's just one way of pushing your type treatment. 1 second, here we go. Okay, so static means not moving, stationary, still. So for Charlie Sheen, right in here, let's find that artwork layer. It's right there. All right, so it looks like you've got masks filled in. So I just grabbed a video clip, my studio shot, just to show you. I had to skip 20 seconds ahead. Okay, yeah, no problem. Yeah, mine was acting goofy as well. Okay, so I'm going to grab this video clip. I'm going to put it below the Charlie Sheen thing. Use Charlie as an alpha matte. And scale the clip. I probably also change the position of it too. And you see how that just adds more life and interest to that still image. So, I mean, you could put something inside of it, you know, like a double exposure. You could add light elements behind this to add some depth to it, some texture. You know, at least you got some texture going here. You know, that's looking good. And like I said, if you use this shape as a fly through into the next scene, that would look a little bit more modern as well. You know, but keep it coming along, and I'll keep giving input while we have time. Okay, so I read what you said about momentum and the astronaut rotating. Let's take a look at this. Let's say the cord cut happens here. Last night in lab, we overthought this problem you're having. You want it to look like the cord snaps. What we did was we added gravity so the ends would fall. That's not what's going to happen in outer space. I kept that part that we worked on last night. That's after this. I'm adding this in now to show you the fast, easy way of fixing this in outer space where there's no gravity to have to worry about. So what should be the fastest solution and the simplest is to go to the cord layer and select it and draw a mask onto it. Okay, and then animate that mask path. So with that layer selected, we're going to grab our pen tool, and to do that, I'm going to use the pen tool and then click here. This will set up a mask for the shape layer. You gotta click that or else you're just gonna draw another shape. I'm gonna make the mask larger than we need it to be, so we've got room to work with. And now if I twirl down or I hit the M key, I can change that mask from add to subtract. Now you've automatically got your break. And you simply click on the mask path to animate it. We'll move forward. And I'm going to grab my arrow tool. This is why I had path points so that you can mask it and change the shape, and you'll keep all of your parenting to the nulls plus the expression and the effects we put on this chord. So you can just animate it along as you want, and then get to a point where you need it to be smaller, add your keyframe, and then shrink it down. It's better to start a little larger than you need. Oops, there was 2 points selected there. And do it that way. And then what I would do is go 1 frame, and I would just completely move this mask off of the screen so that it appears over 1 frame. And you don't even have to like animate it onto the screen. So let me do that again. I'll go back 1 frame, add my path. Now that I have the path, I can drag that path off the screen. Like that. So what's going to happen is over 1 frame, it's going to go from here to instantly there. See? Like that, seamless. So, you know, ease your keyframes, animate the mask where you need it to, and just keep following your shape path and adding new path points to the mask as you need to animate it. And that is how you'll get your break the fastest and easiest way in a zero gravity situation, because these ends would not fall in outer space. So this is the way to do it in zero gravity. Keep watching the rest of the lab if you want to see how to do it in a situation that has gravity. Okay, so I hit Command D to cut the cord, to duplicate the cord. But actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command Shift D to split it. Yeah, so Command Shift D, I split it instead of duplicated it. And I should now be able to get rid of the Nulls connections. And I extended the layer below it just so I can line the cord back up once I removed those nulls. So what I'm going to do, you're going to keep the original cord up until this point. So what I'm doing is I'm going to create 2 new cords, one that ends here and a second one that starts here and goes to the astronaut, okay? And I'm going to butt them together so it looks like 1 cord, but it's really 2 because you need to have 2 separate cords so that they can go in 2 different directions. So I'm going to call this cord new 1. The nulls were necessary to drive the animation up until now. You needed a null to stay by the shuttle, and you needed a null to stay by the astronaut, so that the path points followed those 2 things in a realistic manner. Now you want to do a cut, so you're severing the connection between the 2 things. That's why we're doing new paths, so that it ignores what the nulls are telling them to do. So I changed the layer in point for those 2. So you're not going to see them until that point. And there's your old cord. that's attached to the nulls. And I trimmed that point. So right here, I'm keeping this colored differently so that you can see what's going to happen and not get confused between the two of them. Now I'm opening up the path for each of the new chords that's going to cut. And I'll say, how long do I want that cut to be? You know, not that long. 1 second. Put that there. It's up to you as the designer. What I can do now is select the points and have them drop down. And then I can have this point, this path, just follow the astronaut, just for simplicity's sake. One moment. And then you can add as many frames of animation as you want to get the desired effect. Now at this point, you're probably going to need null paths for this chord to keep it attached to the astronaut. So what we could do is click the path, window, create nulls from paths, and we're going to want the points to follow the nulls, and we're going to attach this new one that's selected to the astronaut. We're going to parent that. Let's do the torso. So now as the astronaut moves, that part's going to move with him. So if the astronaut rotates, that's going to rotate along as well. Let's test that theory out. Oh, and another thing we can do is the other 2 points we can parent to the astronaut so that they stay a consistent length. And we'll do that after the split. So you're probably going to need to have a few frames where let's undo that. Let's not send those to. Yeah, I think if the astronaut moves along, you're probably going to have the middle one go with the astronaut too. That'll work. And then what you can do is after the chord snaps, you can start animating the last one individually, just so that it doesn't get too long. That's how I would do it. That's the way of fixing that. Since I get the snap to go. I hope that helps you out. It was a little bit more involved, but you know, it's all about layer management. 1 second. Oh, great. Yeah. And like I said, I'm fighting off a cold. I've been sick for days, so my head's not 100%, and I'll definitely be able to explain this better, but the only way to get this to work was to have the middle and that null parented to the torso, not the last one. So that holds the connection like that and looks like a split. And then you can animate that one with the position anytime you want. And let's see what happens if we rotate the astronaut. It's funny because now he really looks like he's moving. So I think the astronaut, everything is parented to the torso. So we're going to find out what happens when we rotate that. One moment, and we'll all find out together. I hit U to collapse my layers to free up some space. R for rotate. Yep. So the nulls will follow the rotation of the astronaut, and you'll have to rotate that one along or move it along as you want. I wonder if there's a way of going from there. What if I split this null? And from here on out, I parent that to the torso. Let's see if that works. Okay, alright, now let's see what happens. It's not following the rotation the way I would like it, but at least it's keeping the length a little bit. So that's just one thing you'll have to watch out for with the astronaut rotating. And keep some life in the cord, you know, like turbulent displace and stuff like that, just to make sure that it looks like it has some life and some gravity and some, well, actually I should say lack of gravity as it's moving about in space. Yeah, no problem at all. Glad I was able to review some of your work. Any other questions while I'm still on? That's one possibility, but take a look at this. Let me show you something. Okay, so I threw most of the animation into a precomp that I called test, and I split the layer. Now, if I scrub through here, you see some life left in the cord because of the expressions we put on it. Now let's see what happens if we rotate the precomp. Two full rotations. That's because I included the other cord in there. But everything else stays together. And it's rotating from where the anchor point is on that precomp. So it's not a very tight rotation. So what I'm going to do is we'll ignore that chord because, you know, like I said, that's because I put that width inside the precomp by accident. Let's see if that tightens it up any bit. So that's better. Now it's rotating from the astronaut because we moved it to where the astronaut was, but now it's moving again. So I think what you'd have to do in this situation, I'm going to hit A for anchor point. I'm going to want to keep it by that right arm. Right about there. So now spin is consistent. Okay, that's a little better. And then we'll do position. We'll do that. And move them off the screen like such. So that's looking a little bit better. We may not have had to have done all that anchor point work, but like I said, we'll look at it again with fresh eyes Monday, but that's one way of doing it. Just showing you some of the possibilities there. I'm reading the chat, 1 second. Okay, so Julia, when I said have a folder, call it like homework 2, test or update. Put all your artwork in there, all the photos, your Illustrator file, and the After Effects file. So everything is only in one folder. And then take that folder, don't zip it, don't compress it, copy that new folder into your Google Drive folder so that the files are all there the exact same way they are on your desktop. That may fix it. I think it's all the zipping and unzipping that's breaking all your links. So we'll test that out next week and see if that fixes it. I think that's the way to do it. Let's see, Christian. Okay, great. Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, and for Peter. Yep, I understood what you meant. Okay, excellent. So, I'll see everyone Monday, and the Zoom crit will be Thursday, not Wednesday. I will not be available Wednesday. I've got a family engagement to go to, so we'll have the final is Thursday, and we'll all go through it on Zoom. And just make sure you've got all your work to me by 6 p.m. that night, that Thursday of next week. And Monday will be the final lab. So I'll see everyone Monday if you need any more insight with your work. Have a great weekend, everybody.